Hey there, everyone. Welcome to episode 11 of the Stray Dog Footy podcast. I'm your Stray Dog Frodo, coming to you from hot and steamy, COVID-ridden Florida, and I hope you are doing well. Sorry, I'm a bit late with this episode, but I had to have some oral surgery this week. Let me tell you, back-to-back days in a dentist chair is not how I want to spend my days off. So any mistakes made during this podcast, I am chalking up to fatigue, painkillers, and antibiotics. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So yes, the world is still falling apart, much like my body. Work is crazy, but all seems well as my Western Bulldogs put up another dominant performance last Thursday night, this time against that other Sydney team, the Swans. The bunt was amazing. That mark he took against Heaney was not the most spectacular I have ever seen, but it definitely is one of the most dominant. And Bailey Smith is just on another level. What was really impressive was Tim English, like a butterfly crawling out of his cocoon, his game and ruck craft growing before our eyes. But it was an expensive victory. Both Aaron Naughton and Sam Lloyd went out with injuries, and unfortunately, it looks like both will require surgery. The astronaut will most likely be grounded for 6 to 8 weeks with an ankle syndesmosis injury, and Lloydie looks to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a broken collarbone. With half their bench gone, I was afraid the Bulldogs would just plain wear out as the game dragged on. I was actually happy for this year's shorter COVID-induced quarters. But the Doggies held strong, winning the match by almost 5 goals. And no, I still hate the shorter quarters. I have to take a moment to mention Sydney Swans player Josh Kennedy, who celebrated his 250th game milestone on Thursday. I first really noticed Kennedy playing during the 2016 Grand Final. That first half of football he produced was just amazing, and who knows, if he had had as much of an impact in the second, the result may have been very different. Bevo might never have had the chance to give Bob Murphy his medal, sending me down the Bulldogs YouTube wormhole. And my home right now might be decorated in a much more avian rather than a canine theme. Before the match, indeed before several matches this weekend, the teams paused to remember Josh Kennedy's grandfather, Vale John Kennedy Sr., who had passed away that morning at the age of 91. John Kennedy was inducted into the Australian Football Hall of Fame as the 29th legend for his many contributions to football as both player and coach. But perhaps he is best known for his booming voice and his "don't think, do" speech given at halftime during the 1975 VFL Grand Final. He was also famous for coaching the Hawthorne Hawks to their first flag, his teams becoming known as Kennedy's Commandos, and that first premiership win coming at the expense of the Footscray Bulldogs in 1961. Still, I harbor no ill will against him or his legacy. It is an iconic legacy, like few, if any, others. And in my delight for the Bulldogs' win this past Thursday, I definitely felt more than a twinge of sympathy for Josh Kennedy to lose his 250th that day. Not enough to wish we had lost, mind you, but you get my point. Moving on. Friday night, we had the Giants and Magpies. GWS had some key inclusions and were able to stave off a late surge by Collingwood, winning by a mere 2 points. Saturday started with the Port Adelaide Power going 4-0, rolling over the hub-weary West Coast Eagles to the tune of 48 points. The Power are currently sitting at top of the ladder, while the Eagles are sitting almost at the bottom in 16th place. Not what many thought the season would look like, for sure. Of course, there is another 2/3 of the season left to go, so hang in there, West Coast fans. Next, we had the annual Maddie's match between the Saints and the Tigers. In case you didn't know, Maddie Rewalt was the sister of St. Kilda great Nick Rewalt and the cousin of Richmond star Jack Rewalt. She suffered from aplastic anemia, a rare condition where a person doesn't generate enough new blood cells due to a bone marrow deficiency. Unfortunately, she lost her 5-year battle in 2015. Maddie Rewalt's Vision is a charity that seeks to raise funds to find new ways to find treatment for bone marrow failure. And Maddie's Match is a fundraiser for Maddie's Rewalt's Vision, played each year when the two teams meet. If you have ever wondered why St. Kilda and or Richmond sometimes wear purple on their uniforms, now you know why. Of course, Nick Rewalt has since retired and has quickly become a premier commentator for Fox Footy. But the matches continue, even with no crowds to buy merchandise at the stadium. Unfortunately for Cousin Jack, the Tigers continue to struggle this week, losing to the surprising Saints by a score of 93-67. Next, we had the Bombers and Blues. Carlton won by a single point. Liam Jones somehow spoiled a last-second goal for Essendon with a Falcon. Talk about saving face. Okay, sorry. Moving on. Up next, we had the exciting Suns rise into the second slot on the ladder by defeating the disappointing Dockers by just over 2 goals. That being said, I fully expect both West Australia teams to bounce back somewhat once the hubs move across the country. Then we had the young, strong Lions demolish the hapless Crows by a score of 83-46. Brisbane sits comfortably at third on the ladder, for now anyway, and Adelaide are looking like solid wooden spoon contenders. I do feel for the Crows fans, honestly, as I know how they feel. My Bulldogs sat down at the bottom for months, while the league was in COVID shutdown. Next, we have the oldest rivalry in Australian rules football, with the first 2 clubs meeting up just like they did when the sport was called both Melbourne rules and Geelong rules, with just a few minor differences between them. If you didn't know, the principal inventor of the game, Tom Wills, actually helped establish both clubs in the late 1850s, as well as captaining both sides. In this 2020 edition, we have the Geelong Cats defeating the Melbourne Demons by a mere 3 points. Geelong now sits 6th on the ladder, and Melbourne is down at 15th. However, the D's still have a game in reserve to make up following their postponed match with Essendon, and in this shortened season, those 4 potential points could be huge. If you are interested in learning more about the incredible life of Tom Wills and the invention of Australian rules football, check out episode 4 of my podcast. Finally, we had Hawthorne and North Melbourne. I have to say, I am a fan of the Hawks' throwback Guernseys. Still not loving the colors, but if you had listened to this podcast for a while, you may remember that I don't particularly like stripes. In any case, Clarko's boys beat the Kangas, despite an exciting late surge, by 4 behinds. Okay, now on to round 5. With the COVID situation in Victoria worsening and other states enforcing stricter border closures as a result, there have been several late fixture changes. So the latest information I have about upcoming matches may or may not be 100% accurate. So, with a grain of salt, here goes. Starting with Thursday night footy, we have the Carlton Blues and the St. Kilda Saints. Both teams have surpassed many so-called experts' expectations, and this has the potential to be a great match. Here in the States, you can see it on ESPN2. Then, on Friday night footy, we have the Magpies and the Bombers. In case you didn't know, Collingwood players Steele Sidebottom and Lyndon Dunn have been suspended for COVID protocol violations while visiting injured teammate Jeremy Howe. How these key exclusions affect the Pies will be interesting to see, and if I was a Dons fan, and I'm talking to you, Rosanna, of the AFL Obsessed podcast, I'd be feeling much better about my team's chances than I did just 48 hours ago. Americans can catch the action on Fox Sports 1. Saturday footy starts with the West Coast Eagles and the Sydney Swans. Both teams are looking to bounce back from last round, and you can catch the game on Fox Sports 2 here in the US of A. Next, we have the Cats and Suns. Geelong is nearly unbeatable at home, and this will be a real test for the upstart Gold Coasters. Two of the biggest names in footy will be celebrating huge milestones for the Cats. Joel Selwood for his 300th, and, almost unbelievably, on the same day, Gary Ablett Jr. is going for his 350th, against his old team where he played 110 games no less. Catch the match on Fox Sports 1 here in America. Then we have two games simultaneously. First, we have the number 3 Brisbane Lions taking on the number 1 Port Adelaide Power. In the States, this match is to be broadcast on Fox Sports 1. I will not be watching it live, however, deferring to watch it on the DVR later. Instead, I will be getting up at 5:30 a.m. and booting up my computer's Watch AFL app to see my Western Bulldogs take on the North Melbourne Kangaroos. The injuries have begun to stack up for the doggies, and I haven't seen this week's selections yet. But hopefully we can get a few key players back in time for this match. And maybe we'll have another debutant too. Time will tell. One aspect of this game I'm especially interested in is seeing how young ruck Tim English will do against veteran Kangaroo Todd Goldstein. I think, at the very least, English will learn and grow from this encounter, like he always does. But let's just say I hope the teachable moments are few and far between, if you know what I mean. I'm feeling the Dogs have a good chance to win this one, but whenever I get cocky, the universe slams me in the dirt. Still, hoping for the best. Unfortunately, this game is not scheduled to be broadcast in the States. If you want to not miss games like this, check out the podcast show notes where I provide a link to get your international membership and the Watch AFL app. Then, finishing up the Saturday lineup, we have the two bottom teams desperately trying to climb their way up the ladder. I mean, of course, the Adelaide Crows and the Freo Dockers. This battle will be broadcast on Fox Sports 1 in the USA. Sunday kicks off with another two teams looking to turn their seasons around, the Melbourne Demons and the Richmond Tigers. Unfortunately, this match is not likely to be broadcast on American TV. Once again, check out the link in the show notes to get yourself the best app ever made, also known as the Watch AFL app. Finally, the last match of Round 5 is slated to be a contest between two teams coming off of narrow victories, the GWS Giants and the Hawthorne Hawks. Americans can see this game on ESPN2. Okay, before I go and pop some more pills, I want to say that I just got some bad news this week. I learned that Year of the Dogs is no longer on YouTube. Why they would remove it is beyond me, but most likely due to copyright reasons. But seriously, were the filmmakers losing out on a ton of cash by people having ready access to a documentary from 1997? I doubt it, and it's not like it's on sale anywhere, is it? Luckily, I got a used copy on DVD from eBay a while back. But such a shame. It featured unprecedented access to the day-to-day operations of a footy club. Perhaps the locker room shots provided a little too much access. I don't know. But I genuinely feel sorry for all the people discovering footy these days who may now never know this piece of history and won't understand just how much a footy club means to fans like Pat and Jenny Hodgson and how much they mean to the club as well. If you haven't seen Year of the Dogs and you stumble across a copy, I highly recommend picking it up. Well, I think that should just about wrap it up for now. As always, I thank you so much for listening. I will be so thankful if you could be kind enough to share a link to this podcast with your friends, family, co-workers, boyfriends, exes, current mistresses, and even that loudmouth uncle you argue with at Thanksgiving. After all, it's about sharing and growing this amazing sport of Aussie rules that we all love. This podcast can be found on your favorite podcast player or at straydogfooty.podbean.com. And I would love to hear your feedback. Please let me know what you like, what you dislike, and what else you would like me to chinwag on about. You can reach me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Stray Dog Footy, and by email at straydogfooty@yahoo.com. I also just wanted to mention that I am not endorsed by or officially affiliated with either the Australian Football League or the Western Bulldogs, beyond being a huge fan and supporter. Likewise, I am not endorsed or affiliated with Peg and the Rejected, but I am a fan of their music. I would like to thank them for the use of their song, Red, White, Black, and Blue, which I used a portion of as the intro to this episode. I will also play us out to their entire song, just like I always do, and of course, leave a link in the show notes to their great music. Hopefully, all the games go on as scheduled, and this latest wave of COVID can be surfed as quickly as possible. Stay safe, everyone. Be kind to each other. And go the mighty, mighty Bulldogs.